heavy. Hi, my name is Dave Pollard. I'd like to welcome you to Portland Film Beat. Tonight, my guest is the Executive Director of Lead Safe America, Tamara Rubin. She also directed the documentary Misled, America's Secret Epidemic. Welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here. Let's get going.
Thanks for having me.
Do you have children? How old are they?
Yeah,
That'd be a good starting point, right?
I have a lot of children. Too many. Stop at 2. You know, if you haven't yet.
You didn't stop at 2, I think.
I know. I have 4 sons.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so my youngest is Charlie Parker, Eliezer Rubin. He's 6. We're jazz fans. And then my oldest is 18. His name is Cole Scott Rubin, and he recently played at Jimmy Mac's.
Oh,
so,
wow.
And then I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, AJ and Avi, in the middle.
Okay. Tell me about your story and what got you to make this documentary.
Well, we moved to Portland 12 years ago. And prior to that, I had lived in the Bay Area and I'd renovated older homes. And we decided to renovate our historic home in Irvington. And we just were starting simple, just repainting the exterior. So we hired a contractor to repaint the exterior of the house. And we learned in the hiring process from interviewing several different painting contractors that we needed to hire someone who's certified in lead-safe work practices. So we hired a contractor who told us he was certified in lead-safe work practices. And we later found out, unfortunately, that he was lying and he wasn't certified, because not only did he not use lead-safe work practices, but he used the most dangerous methods possible to remove the paint from our house.
And that is by burning it?
He burned it off, yeah.
And the smoke and the fumes.
And the fumes came off of the house as he was doing that. And he also told us it was safe to stay in the house while he was doing it because he was only working on the outside. So my son, Avi, was 7 months old at the time, and AJ was just 3. And they inhaled lead fumes and were instantly acutely poisoned.
Yeah, it's a very young age. It wouldn't take a lot. And from what I read, if children consume or get lead in their system before 6, it can be very damaging for adults, but actually for kids before 6, it can cause behavior and attention problems, failure at school, hearing, kidney, reduced IQ, and slow growth. And I'm sure you're going to tell us all about those things, right?
Yeah, the interesting
I'm sorry
thing,
to hear about that from your sons, but
it's a new life. You know, this is my calling now. And so 2 things. One, I started a nonprofit, the Lead Safe America Foundation, to do outreach and education to help parents and protect children from being poisoned. And then as one of our outreach projects, we created this film, Misled, America's Secret Epidemic, because my experience, having been on all these different TV shows and in the news, on the cover of USA Today, nothing was making a difference. People read that news story and then don't think of it applying to them, whereas a documentary has a greater impact. It can hang around a while, people can refer their friends to it, and they can find it, hopefully, somewhere, Netflix.
right. Well, we're going to watch the trailer, and the trailer is pretty powerful, so we're going to watch that in a little bit.
Well, you asked about age 6, and you
right.
mentioned that, and actually, so the name of the film is Misled. And it's spelled wrong. It's spelled M-I-S-L-E-A-D, Misled, America's Secret Epidemic. But that's because it's mis and lead. And the age 6 thing is one of the things that we're being misled about by the federal government.
Oh, okay. So actually, my reading that, actually, I was given faulty information on the internet.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
I was surprised there.
That's part of the problem, is that a lot of the information that's being given to the public is limited by federally funded studies that are influenced by industry, as in any industry influencing information about the potential toxicity of their industry on ourselves, on humans, on our homes, on our children. And so the thing to know is that your brain is growing and developing until you're 25 years old. Yes, the younger you are, the more quickly your brain develops and the more likely you're going to absorb more lead. But you can be lead poisoned at any age.
Okay,
and
right. I've read that. Yeah, I read it. It can affect adults. It can have profound effects on adults as well.
Yeah, I mean, miscarriage, kidney failure, heart disease, equally traumatizing impacts as the brain damage caused to young children.
Right. And so I take it that your 2 young sons who have been severely, or at least have had toxic lead levels within them.
Yeah. Avi had a blood lead level of 16 when we first tested him. And the interesting part about that is that because we were white and middle income, and this was now 9 years ago, our doctor didn't even think to suggest that we get a lead test. So he was violently ill for 2 months with all sorts of symptoms of acute lead poisoning and not tested once.
Wow.
And same with AJ. And so we finally got AJ tested. He was a 3-year-old, and he tested positive for a lower level of lead. And I thought, if this is odd, if he tests positive, where did he come from? It still didn't click that it was from the contractor yet. I should get the baby tested because Avi wasn't yet crawling or walking, and he was solely nursing, and so he should be an indicator. If he has no exposure, then I can know, like, AJ licked a bus stop or something,
Right, sure.
And so I decided to get Avi tested, and it was like 2.5 months after he was poisoned, and that's when he came back with a blood level 16, and the doctor said, you have to move out of your house. Your children have been poisoned, and
that's really frightening.
And what I later learned is that there's a 30-day half-life of lead in the blood, and so he might have been a 32, blood level 32 a month before, and even possibly a blood level 64 a month before that, which is consistent with the acute poisoning symptoms that he had. Currently, the federal government considers a child poisoned with a blood level of 5.
Whoa.
In Germany, a child is considered poisoned with a blood level of 3.5.
Wow.
And the naturally occurring level.
So this is a worldwide thing.
Yeah.
It's just not in America.
No, here it's being covered up more.
Well, oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, we can talk about that. But I know they used to add lead to paint years ago, and gasoline, but they stopped doing that. Is it the residual paints that are still there from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or
Yeah.
are there actual products now that still have lead being added to them?
Both, but mostly the problem is lead in paint, and the residual paint, the legacy paint that's on anywhere between 86 to 92% of houses in Portland, the inner Portland, the pre-1978 houses. I mean, Southeast Portland 97202 zip code has 92.5% of the houses built before 1978.
Wow.
So pretty much any of these houses can have hazardous amounts of lead paint. But what's new is that this paint was applied in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and it was applied and meant to last for almost 100 years.
Because it had lead in it.
Because it had lead in it. So now here we are almost 100 years later, and it's finally deteriorating at a new level, and the dust is exuding into our environments.
Oh, so actually the paint, yes, can be a much bigger problem.
It's a much bigger
Well,
problem.
there's part of that we'll see that in the trailer with the dust.
Right, exactly. And it's also a bigger problem with all of the gentrification and renovation happening, as well as the demolition in Portland today.
Wow. Mm-hmm. What was the most exciting thing that happened while you were making the film, the documentary?
Since the film's a project of a nonprofit, it's been completely funded by donations, and we have over 850 people who have donated something. So one of the things that happened was I went to show a test screening at a friend's house in Brooklyn. She invited several families over, and I didn't know that her husband was the owner of one of the top sound finishing studios in the country, and I had forgotten actually that her daughter had been lead poisoned, and he offered to donate all of the sound finishing we need for the film.
Wow.
Which was pretty exciting.
No sound is important in film. Yeah, it sounds good.
I think the sound is the most important thing. It holds everything together,
I agree.
right?
Yeah.
And then after that, we had all these in-kind donations of camera work and all these other things, and we started to get into the music, and we scored the film with a lot of popular music. And one thing was...
Did you have to get permission? Did you get permission from a lot of the artists?
We're still finalizing some of that, actually. We're in post, almost done. We have a pretty polished final cut that we're showing coming up. But anyway, so one of the big music choices we made was Behind Blue Eyes by The Who. And my editor said, there's no way that The Who is going to donate the use of Behind Blue Eyes. You're crazy. And so we sent them an email saying, hey, here's the scene we want to use your song in, and here's the trailer to the film. Would you consider donating it? And Roger and Pete emailed me back and said, yep, we'll donate.
They're great guys.
They're amazing. It was
Wow.
incredible. And Roger actually was wondering if we knew about chemical chelation in dock workers who had been exposed to lead from, the industry of working on boats.
That's a good question. Is there any type of chelation therapy for your sons or anyone who's been actually poisoned by lead?
They generally avoid chemical medical intervention chelation unless you have a blood level of over 40 micrograms per deciliter. And because at over 40, 50, 60, you can get into seizures that can cause death, and that's why there's a beneficial opportunity of doing chelation. So with lower levels that we see in most children today, they don't do any kind of chelation, but we did natural chelation with our children. There's some studies that show that garlic, cilantro, chlorella, and a few other plants can actually help pull the lead out of the blood and therefore limit the amount that's being absorbed by the brain.
Okay. How about we take a few minutes now? We're going to take a few minutes. It's actually a 3-minute trailer. I'd like you to stick around and watch the trailer, and we'll be right back.
We're like a nation of fools that we would allow this to happen to our children.
We can't see it.
There are no direct obvious symptoms.
She just started acting weird, so I took her to the doctor.
There really are no medical treatments.
Violent behaviors, IQ deficits,
memory problems,
ADHD,
autistic-like symptoms.
It's insidious.
No, I don't go outside. I don't go outside.
And it's impacting millions of children.
My children were poisoned when we did home renovation. We hired a contractor. We didn't know that he wasn't using lead-safe work practices. He used an open flame torch to remove the exterior paint. The children inhaled the fumes and were instantly poisoned.
And I thought he was okay because I wasn't living in a house that was being sanded. My firstborn son will just never be the same, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Suddenly at 12 weeks, the baby was dead. And we'll never know if that was why.
So we got your blood test results back. The children tested positive. Both of them did. I'm quite crying because I don't know if I can help you. And I want to be able to help you.
Lead causes brain damage. Like, for example, head going through the windshield of a car. It's totally preventable. When it happens, it's irreversible, it's untreatable.
This amount of contaminated household dust with lead-based paint will cause childhood lead poisoning.
And nobody seems to know about it.
What I'm finding is that it's actually middle and upper income families that are getting poisoned now, and that these families aren't being tested. Who's the bad guy here?
Definitely the lead industry.
Our government.
Clearly the paint companies.
They knew right away that it was poisonous, and through lobbying and government corruption, they just keep it quiet.
In many cases, it was lawyers sitting around the table and very few scientists.
Why is the CDC diminishing this issue in the eyes of the American public?
Our kids' life aren't that important to them.
I'm just a volunteer mom whose children were poisoned. I actually started a nonprofit foundation. So we're doing free blood lead testing. We have a health clinic. Self Health Clinic has donated their time. Oh my God. Now this is 549,000 parts per million lead. That means it's over 50% lead. We're like out and about and I found a massive violation and I wanted to report it.
It's great what you're doing. If only enough people will do it, we can have a better world.
That was really powerful.
Information dense.
It's pretty powerful. It's very touching, especially when you see the children. I guess, you know, as a parent, I can't say I know what you're going through. I don't. And I don't want to know, but I'd like us to be able to help support that in any way we can. What's your schedule when we'll see this in theaters?
We are working to have it completely finished by December 1st. And in the meantime, we're doing preview screenings around the country. And I've been doing preview screenings since last October.
Right. There's going to be one here.
Yeah.
Right?
The Clinton Theater is hosting a preview screening on September 7th. Which is a Sunday coming up at 2 p.m. and it's free and open to the public, and we'd love to have a full house. And I'm really excited because we're going to have the 94-minute showing of the film, followed by a post-screening discussion with local parents of lead-poisoned children. And Brett Bigham is the Oregon Teacher of the Year, and he's also a special education teacher, and he's going to be on the post-screening discussion panel as well.
That's great. What were the biggest obstacles you faced along the way?
That's a fun one, sort of. right in the beginning, when we were raising money to get started, I was putting the word out, and I had a Kickstarter campaign going, and I listed all of our sponsors in the Kickstarter campaign as they came in. I'm like, oh, this person's sponsoring that person, this company, you know, I was really excited. And at some point, a major player in the lead industry found out that I was making the movie, saw my list of sponsors, and started calling all of my major sponsors in the construction industry. And they essentially threatened them, and they said, if you stay involved with the Lead Safe America Foundation, with this film, and or with Tamara Rubin, we will cut off all of your business contracts.
Whoa.
So I had
Whoa.
4 of my sponsors back out.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And it was actually a little bit terrifying for a moment. You know, talking to lawyers, getting letters from lawyers, trying to figure out.
Well, a big company comes after you, you're in trouble.
It was scary, yeah.
Especially the small person.
Yeah. Well, I thought I couldn't lose anything, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to lose.
That's one of the wonderful things about it, right?
Right.
How widespread is lead poisoning?
Well, the entire country is impacted, the entire planet, because of the lead mining industry. Essentially, vertically integrated industries like the paint industry, they were mining the lead, and then they were refining it, and then they were creating the product of
So there's
lead
actually
paints.
probably some particles from lead in the air all the time from the mining,
It's
or
at
at
the-
least for refining it.
It's at the North Pole. I mean, it's in the polar ice caps.
Okay. Well, lead seems like, I don't know, what would they need for pencils?
Pencils don't have lead.
Okay, why do they call them lead pencils?
Well, so the interesting thing is...
All right, so they're graphite.
Yeah, they are graphite.
Why do they need to mine lead then? What is it used for?
It's used for everything. Mostly they need to mine lead because they are making money. I think last year the lead industry posted record profits. And they're making money, so they're trying to find ways to get rid of lead, to use lead in products, to sell other industries on lead. So I have one of the things that was donated for the film.
Okay, cool.
This is a $40,000 X-ray fluorescence spectrometer donated by Thermo Fisher Scientific. It's a Niton XL3T Gold Plus, and I'm trained and certified in using it. And basically you point and shoot, you point it at anything, and it tells you how much lead is in something. And as a kind of a PR thing,
Can you shoot at me? And
I
tell me?
can't. They're just developing new technology to use this on human bones, but they're not doing that yet.
Okay.
But what I do as a way to drum up interest in the film and create an advanced audience before releasing it is I go do these testing parties where I take my XRF to people's homes and I test their things and tell them how much lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and stuff is in.
Oh, it tells you all the other chemicals too.
Any heavy metals. And so I go to people's homes and do these testing parties. And then right now our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/misleadmovie, has over 5,000 followers. And most of them are people following the posts of the things I post online that have lead. One of the biggest things that I tested recently that got over 40,000 hits in 2 days was a Pyrex bowl from the 1940s, 1950s.
Wow.
And it was, you know, a baking dish that people use. People were pissed off. Ooh, can we say that? They were mad. People were so mad that their vintage, you know, Pyrex dish that they love so much had lead.
Ruby red dishes have a lot of lead in them, and so there's a lot of dishes with lead in them.
Yes, and so you can go to...
Don't some of the other foreign countries put lead in a lot of things, that like toys and everything, that we really got to be a little weirded out about?
This is the instrument used by the CPSC for stuff being imported, so they test things, and that's how they generate recalls if they find lead. But there's things that you don't think about. Things that are toys for children are regulated, but things like, I was just going around your studio here seeing what I could find, things like cables are not regulated because they're not intended for children, so nobody thinks, oh, well, a child's going to put this in their mouth, and so is it safe? So I tested these 2 cables earlier, and this cable is a new cable. I don't know where it was made. It doesn't say it right here. But it's a brand new cable, and it was negative for lead. And this is an older cable. And the amount of lead that's considered poisonous in a consumer good for a child is 90 parts per million. And this was over 32,000 parts per million lead.
Wow.
So I'm going to wash my hands after we are done here.
All
But
right.
it's things that you don't think about, things that are being sold not as items intended for children. And that can go so far as to be jewelry, costume jewelry. You might
Yes.
go to a store to buy something for your daughter or granddaughter and like this thing that's in the adult jewelry section, and it says not intended for children under 16.
But you're still giving that lead can get into the adult.
Yeah, it can, but that's not regulated.
Okay, then that leads to my next question. What is the government doing anything about that? And should they be? Is there big money making certain that things don't happen?
The government is doing what they can within very restricted guidelines because of almost no funding. So basically we have a really big issue that isn't funded, and then one of the main reasons it's not funded because people think it's not a problem anymore. So if you don't think something's a problem, you're not going to vote to make sure that there's funding to address the problem. And so
Right.
it's kind of self-perpetuating, and so what we need to do and why we created this film was to make sure people know that it is still a problem, that 1 in 3 kids in the United States have had an unsafe level of lead in their blood in their lifetime, that it just takes a microscopic amount of lead to poison a child, and that we need to do
With
something
disastrous effects.
Yeah, disastrous, yeah. My son Avi is 9, he's going into 4th grade, and he has a brain injury where his visual memory is in the 4th percentile, so he can't put words together from letters because he can't remember what the first letter is by the time he gets to
And
the
this is
second
going to be a
letter.
lifelong. That's tragic.
A challenge, yeah, and he has other issues too, a lot of
Okay,
other issues.
wow. What should parents do to prevent their children from being poisoned?
So it's a big question. So one thing in Portland, you're lucky you have me, because nobody else does this in the country that I'm aware of, actually. So you can have me come to your house and do a testing party. You can find more.
And guess what? She works for free. We already talked about that. I probably shouldn't say that, but she does, right?
Well, we like donations to the foundation, but
donate to the foundation if she comes to your house and helps.
But we do these free testing parties where as long as you invite 6 guests to your home, I come and test your things, and I can tell you if there's any lead hazards or arsenic or mercury or cadmium or barium in your stuff. And then 3M is a major sponsor of the foundation, and they've donated. Well, right now in my office, I have about $200,000 worth of these in my office. These are free. They're not free. They sell for $14.95 each, as much as $14.95 at the store, but I give them away for free.
Right.
They're lead paint test kits. And so you can ask me for one. You can stop by my office in Westmoreland. It's good to give me a heads up that you're coming because I'm around out and about a lot, so I'm not always at the office. And
you'll let people have those for free?
I give these out for free all over the country. I've given away 8,000 this year already, 8,000 test kits. I think maybe 10,000. Yeah.
Your information is up there on the screen. If somebody mailed you a return address envelope, would you mail it back to them?
Yeah, sure. No, we have a form on the website that says free test kits, and you can go and fill it out. And you don't even have to donate towards postage, but if you do, that's great because it helps us send it out.
Sure it does.
I just sent a stack of these to a family in China whose baby was poisoned.
Nice.
I sent them to Canada, to England, to Australia.
You're very busy.
I'm very
busy.
busy.
Bless you for that.
Yeah, it's a full-time job. It's a full-time job. And the film is our way to, I say if you want to protect your kids from lead poisoning, come see the film. And if you don't make the film on the 7th, let's coordinate another screening at your school, for your PTA, for your homeowners association, whatever you've got. We'll do a screening, a private screening for your group, because it's really important that this message gets out there.
Sure is.
The information's there. And there's a lot of other information on my website, on leadsafeamerica.org. We've got a resources page, and there's a Portland resources page. So what to do there.
What's the most egregious and open violations being used with lead products nowadays?
Well,
it's kind of nice that 3M is actually getting on board at the other opposite side.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be some tension there between the lead industry and 3M. Then 3M's been a respected company for years, though.
I'm not going to get into that too much right now because they're a major sponsor. But one thing I want to say that they were on like one of the top polluter lists, and they're falling to the bottom of that. Like, they're working really hard to clean up their image and make sure that their products are not impacting the environment in the way that they have in the past.
They're being corporate responsible. I really like that because sometimes you don't see that too much nowadays.
Yeah, and they're very generous in giving me these test kits to give away. It's really wonderful. And then in terms of other areas to look for, you were mentioning things from out of the country. In general, right now, things from China are not the huge hazard that people assume they are.
Well, that's what we hear. You know, that's what you think.
It's more things from like Mexico or Italy where there's low fire pottery that one of these will use to test positive, will test pink. Or like I was saying, the jewelry, leaded crystal. I think leaded crystal is the biggest crime out there right now. You buy it, you know it's leaded crystal. There's huge, like really well done, documented studies.
Why do they put lead in it? Does it make it sparkle more?
Sparkle. Because the lead industry said, hey, this is a good use for lead. And, you know, it actually leaches within an hour. The beverage in a wine glass will have measurable amounts of lead.
Yuck.
And so if you use any of those decanters and you leave the alcohol in your decanter for more than the time that you're serving it, you're actually drawing in more and more lead. They studied the decanters over time, and I have a blog post about that where it talks about...
Cause you to give up drinking wine, huh?
Well,
Especially
drink it out of a glass bottle. Don't drink it out of leaded
crystal.
crystal.
Drink it out of the bottle itself, hey.
Or glass.
Take me back to high school. I can do that.
No, I meant don't pour from a crystal decanter. But you can get really nice...
Drink it from the beer mug. Fill it up, right?
cheap wine glasses for $1 a piece at Target don't have lead.
Okay.
You know, it's the fancy ones, the Rydell's that sell for, I don't know, 100, 160 bucks each, that are leaded crystal and are sold as leaded crystal. And they actually do leach, and you'll return it and say, you didn't tell me that these were poisonous. And they'll say, it says leaded crystal, you bought it. You knew it was leaded crystal.
Yeah.
People just don't know what that means. The other big problem we're seeing is bathtubs. A lot of these old vintage bathtubs have toxic amounts of lead that are leaching. And if they do...
Is it from the paint in them?
It's from the enamel coating, a leaded enamel.
Oh.
Yeah, that's wearing because they're over 100 years old in a lot of cases. And the problem with the bathtubs is that homes are being remodeled, but it's so expensive to move the bathtub, and because you sometimes have to knock out walls, and also the bathtubs have a charm that people like, the old clawfoot tubs.
You know, so, little feet on it and things like that.
So you renovate the whole home and make it all non-toxic, nice, LEED certified and green, and leave in this toxic bathtub that I've tested. Some of these bathtubs are 300,000 parts per million lead. And I mean, that's also the same with the crystal. It's 300 to 400,000 parts per million
lead.
Which is
really, really high.
Really high, yeah. I told you I could talk forever.
Well, you can keep going. What can we all do to bring awareness to lead poisoning?
Well,
here's the thing: is I've heard about it. I'll be honest, I've heard about it. It's like, oh, okay, and I move on. I don't think about it the next day.
The thing that people aren't getting is that it's one of the major contributors to learning disabilities and behavioral disorders like ADD, ADHD, autism spectrum symptoms. All these behavioral and learning issues that we're seeing in the schools today are completely correlated with the home renovations and you know, other stuff going on in the just older home deterioration. So, you know, definitely test your home, get your kids tested, and watch the film.
Cool. We're kind of running out of time here. I'm Dave Poland. I want to thank you for watching Portland Film Beat. It's been a great, go and watch the documentary. I want to take this time to thank Ellery Nelson, our director. He does a great job helping. I also want to thank my wife, Carol Poland, who is the executive producer. Until next time on Portland Film Beat, shoot for the silver screen.